Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. All right, fans, welcome back to another episode of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. Really excited for our episode today because we have Sarah Hopkins. She is the head men's and women's cross country coach at the University of Minnesota. So we're going to talk about lots of things, running, coaching, female athletes, just tons of stuff that we're going to talk about today. But real quick, I'll just give you her bio as a quick intro. Sarah took over the women's cross-country team at the University of Minnesota in 2013 and the men's team in 2021. And this was after serving as a volunteer coach at Minnesota for 8 years. Sarah was named the 2020 and 2021 Midwest Region Coach of the Year, as well as the 2021 Big Ten Coach of the Year. Sarah coached the men's team to their first NCAA appearance in 6 years and the women to 2 top 8 team finishes in the last 2 seasons. So Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really excited. And just as I read off your bio, congratulations on the recent Big Ten Coach of the Year for 2021. That's a really big deal.
Thanks. Yeah, the Big Ten ones are not easy to come by. It's a crazy conference in all sports, but especially in cross country. So it obviously takes a lot of great athletes, but it doesn't come around very often. So it's definitely one I'm kind of proud of because it is hard to come by.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's a lot that goes into that, but what do you think are some kind of like standout things that kind of helped you and the team kind of get to that point?
Yeah, in a weird way, we kind of hit COVID at the right time, and that's going to sound terrible, but we had a bunch of fifth-year student athletes last year who would have been done. And because of COVID last year, we got a 6th year of eligibility for them. And so it was kind of a bonus season. And we just have a great group of older women on the team right now that are wonderful humans, but also just very, very talented. And so to get another year with this group has just been kind of a blessing. And so, like I said, the Big Ten's always really competitive. And the way we set up our teams, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but track and cross country kind of go out of the same pot of scholarships. And we're not like a cross country specific program. We're a very balanced program. And so there's a lot of programs that invest more heavily in distance than we do. And so that also doubles the challenge of trying to line up the right people at the right time to try to go after a win in cross country. And so, yeah, we just kind of got a little lucky that we had the right personnel and that those personnel committed to come back for a 6th year. And our top 3 were all 6th year women who just really have just gotten better and better throughout their career. And then we had a good supporting cast that held up their end of the bargain too. And so, yeah, like I said, we just kind of hit a good meet at the right time. But yeah, we've been building to it for 3 or 4 years now. So it was definitely a kind of a strategic build to try to get this window in time where we've got a great group that was ready to take on that kind of challenge.
Yeah, strategic build, of course. COVID wasn't part of that strategy. You didn't know that was going to happen, but it's really interesting to hear you say, obviously having a strong group of the older athletes on the team. So whether it be seniors, 5th years, or because of the extra eligibility, a 6th year, which is really amazing. And it's funny too, because it's like 4 years coming into college. 4 years sounds like a long time, but it's not. It goes by so fast. And the amount of time that it takes for you to adapt to a new coach or a training style or just everything going on in college, it really sometimes takes a full 4 years or more to really reap those benefits.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell my men and women, like, if we do our jobs well and we keep you healthy, like, you absolutely physiologically should be at your best at the end. Distance running is such a sport of accumulated training. It's not a skill-based sport. So it's not a sport that like you can just pick up the skill and have it. It's a sport that, and if you're kind of patient to do it the right way, in my opinion, like it just takes year after year. It's such an accumulating thing. And so physiologically speaking, men and women distance runners don't peak until they're like 29 to 33 years old. And so you're talking about 18-year-olds, and the difference from 18 to 23 is just huge. And so, there's a lot of gymnasts and basketball players and football players and other sports that maybe can come in and be very close to that peak level right away. And with distance runners, it is such a huge advantage to have just an older group and luckily, knock on wood, a healthy group. And I'm sure that'll be part of what we get into later on the podcast, but keeping a group healthy and having an emotionally healthy group that was excited for their sixth year. I think sometimes in college athletics, you might be physically peaking your sixth year, but you might just be burned out. And how do you keep that balance for any sport of physically maybe being at your best at the end, but being just kind of fizzling out and ready to be done. And so that was a really big thing for us this year too, was having this great group back, but capitalizing on it in a way that wasn't feeling like they were just emotionally shot after 5 years of grinding, and then emotionally shot like the rest of us with just living through COVID for a year and a half and having to just live life and deal with all the extra level of emotional stress that brought about. And so I think hitting all those things well was just, it was more challenging than it maybe looks from the outside of just like, oh, you've got a group of sixth years, bada bing, bada boom, you should be good. Physically, yes, but how do you balance that with the emotional, mental, social, all that kind of stuff of kids that one of our kids was already admitted to medical school. And so how do you ask her to kind of put that on hold for a year and do one more year of this? And luckily she was wanting and willing to do that and got to defer a year. But, sometimes people aren't wanting to put the rest of their lives on hold just for one more year. But this group was wanting to and willing to do that. And that kind of resulted in what we got this fall.
Yeah. So that's amazing for you and amazing for the team, of course. But I totally hear what you're saying about at the end of a collegiate career of kind of athletes being ready to move on. But actually, before getting there, I just want to highlight something else you said about just endurance sports, how like you peak kind of late 20s, early 30s, because I think that also for anybody that's feeling like around college time or post-college, like they need to take a break, to kind of give you that sense of hope that like, it's okay, because if you do still want to pursue your running goals, like you got time, like, you got time. And so maybe just take 6 months off or a year downtime and see if you want to keep pursuing it because you've got that time. It's not like it's now or nothing, Yeah.
And I think conversely to that too, I think there's a lot of people that anecdotally look at the outside and think that girls especially peak early because they're little and they haven't gone through puberty yet. And you see a lot of people with the misconception, and even parents that we recruit or kids that we recruit thinking that, man, in women's distance running, a lot of people peak their freshman year in high school and their sophomore year in high school. And all of that there's a big web of the reasons that looks that way. But just reminding people that like, no, that is it. There's some false things that are sprinkled in there that might make it look that way. But really, to your point too, even looking at the flip side of that like if you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl who maybe had really good junior high, early high school performances and is now seeing a plateau or sort of a step back because of some growth and maturity and puberty and things like that, that tide is rideable to get to the other side. And really, if you keep with it, you will still be better than that 13-year-old girl when you're 23 and 25 and 29. But you got to ride some of the little bumps in the road. And I think that's a misnomer in our sport, because you do see other sports, whether it's gymnastics or figure skating, that you do sort of see this peak at 16, 17. And really, running is not that way. But sometimes I think people view it that way because of a lot of other factors that go into that.
Yeah, I love everything you were just saying, Sarah. And so I think let's just like dive right into that and just expand on it more. So yeah, I think in the running community, for sure, I think it's prevalent on both male and female side, but you might have actually more insight to the male side than even I do. But there's that big misconception of like smaller or lighter equals faster. And a lot of runners do hit some peaks and some PRs kind of before going through puberty. And so then going through puberty, putting on weight, putting on muscle gain, getting your period can actually slow performances. For you as a head coach, and I don't know how much you can really speak on this, but like how important is it for you to have an athlete step into college, like being just more like developed, I think I want to say.
Yeah. I think everybody has that time physically in their lives at different times. So I was lucky that I kind of went through all that stuff in middle school before I even started running. So when I started running, I was who I was. I was I weighed what I was going to weigh. I had already gone through puberty, and I didn't even start running until after that. So the running body I always had was the same. Obviously ebbs and flows, but for the most part, the same. Where a lot of people start in 7th, 8th grade, just naturally, not because of anything they're doing wrong. They just are 7th graders and they're little and they haven't gone through changes yet. And when they do, like I said, it's adjusting to that new body, and it's a weight to strength ratio. It's not that one weight is better or lighter is better, but certainly just like anybody, like if any of us right now, just having been pregnant, like you put on 15 or 20 pounds really rapidly and your body's like, whoa, what's happening? That's not because you can't do it at that weight, but it's because you just have to adjust to it. And so if you allow your body that time to adjust, and you have coaches that are really adept, or parents or nutritionists or whoever that surrounds those athletes saying, hey, this is super normal. And a lot of it is the emotional side of it, right? That when you're a 7th grader and you're winning everything, woo, this is super fun. And then maybe you're fine, but you realize all of a sudden it's a lot harder to try to win, or you're not winning. And emotionally, you just kind of say, well, I don't really like to do this anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm a big proponent of honestly not really starting running until a little bit later, because it is a sport of this longevity, and it is hard to make it through that leap and that hump. And so a lot of the people that we recruit really haven't gotten good until their sophomore, junior, senior year of high school. And some of that's on purpose, because when you look at an athlete whose best times are from 13, 14 years old, not that I don't trust that they can't get back to that point, but it is hard. And are they going to be emotionally strong enough and not try to cut corners and think that the only way to do that is to get back to that body or get back to that weight, but to say, nope, this is this next generation of me as a runner, and this generation can actually be better, but I have to do it within the confines of who I am now, and not try to go back to that, because it's super tempting. It's like any sport. You think about, well, what was the common denominator that made me the fastest I've ever run? Well, now I'm going to try to get back to that. And that's where I think you see this tension, is this idea that that's what I felt great. It felt easy. Running felt easy when I was there. And just the knowledge from somebody, the coach or whoever, to say, I promise you that you will feel that way again a year from now, once you adapt and your body adapts to this new body, and it'll feel even stronger and better down the road. You just have to ride this wave, and we're not going to push you. We're going to modify training a little bit to make sure you don't get hurt. We're maybe going to do a little bit more cross training and not as much running to adapt to this new physique, and not be afraid of talking about it, because it is new and it is different, but saying that there is going to be this sort of feeling of going backwards before you can go forwards. And that feeling is okay. And that actually, it should happen that way. And that's normal. And you kind of need to embrace it, as opposed to try to run from it or just ignore it. Because I think a lot of girls, people just ignore it, and then they're left in their own minds thinking, well, I have to solve this problem on my own. And the only tool I have is knowing what I felt like and looked like before and what I feel like and look like now. And if no one's there to sort of counsel through that, then they're going to spin. And it's pretty obvious to say, well, I can fix this real quick. I just have to lose 20 pounds or 50, whatever it is. And obviously those of us, hopefully, that know better will say no, but it's acknowledging it and talking about it and being open and upfront about it, and educating high school coaches and things like that. Because I think a lot of high school coaches are they don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to talk about it at all, because they're afraid they're going to say it wrong, especially male coaches coaching females. And then it's just not a conversation, which is almost worse, because then it is just this elephant in the room. And then you get girls that either quit or they do the wrong thing to try to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the dropout rate of girls participating in sport as they're in high school and going through puberty is just so high. And it's either just quitting and giving up on themselves, which is sad because as you just said, it's like ride the wave. When you get to the other side, you can step into being a stronger and a better athlete, but you have to ride that wave. Or like you said too, the other downfall is when left to our own devices, which at a young age, we don't have many devices and resources. You can do the wrong thing and really harm yourself, whether it be with not developing, getting injured, stress fractures, developing issues with your relationship with food and body. And it will delay you even further. So I love hearing that from a head coach. And I just kind of want to state it one more time. If we have young listeners, that ride the wave. You are supposed to develop, you're supposed to gain weight, including muscle mass, including fat mass, including bone mass. And you need to just ride the wave of those changes so that you can get to that point. And knowing too that it's going to be uncomfortable, but there are coaches out there like Sarah that understand exactly what you're going through and they're going to be patient with you. And what I love what you said earlier is like, as a coach, you've got that long-term goal in mind of having your athletes peak in their senior year. It's great. It's totally great when you have a freshman come in and perform well. We're not going to say that's a bad thing.
I will not say no.
No, we will not say no to that, but that's not necessarily what your intention and your plan is. It's really developing them over time, and letting the body develop over time is a huge part of that too.
Yeah. And I will say too, I mean, you probably know way more about this than I do because it's certainly not in my degree area, but I think one of the hard things too is we have young women that look at the 29 to 32-year-old distance runners, and because hormonally they're in a whole different place, they are very lean and they can be very lean and have that be healthy. And they're doing it in a way that's different, where in this kind of right around puberty and right past puberty, like the hormone levels are just so different that like to try to have this physique that you're seeing in these professional athletes, to try to have that when you're 16, 17, 18 years old is also just hormonally terrible. And totally. It's not feasible. And so we all are guilty of sort of emulating someone that we want to be like, right? I mean, we see that in everything. And we see it with, I see this professional runner running 100 miles a week, so I should run 100 miles a week. Or I see this person looking like this with this sort of very lean muscle mass. But honestly, it's a big red flag for me to see a 16-year-old that looks like Shalane Flanagan, or that looks like Kara Goucher when she was at her best, or whoever, or Molly Seidel, because at 16, you're not built to look like that. And if you do, something that you're doing is not supporting your growth and your hormones and all that stuff. And it will eventually, the dam will break. And so I think that is another reminder that even just hormonally over this period of an athletic career for most athletes, there's so many variabilities hormonally and nutritionally and just everything that it'd be just like a high school basketball player guy who's, 5'3" looking at, LeBron James and be like, I want to be built like that. Well,
takes more time. Yeah.
It's impossible because you just can't force yourself to grow. You can't force yourself to grow muscle mass, but somehow I think some people have this idea that on the women's side, I can make myself look like that by making nutritional changes. It's the same idea. It's really virtually impossible. And so I think just reminding everyone that those women, I think sometimes there's this idea that, well, they're not healthy because they're so lean. Well,
it's different.
They actually might be really healthy, but it's just because of where they are in their career and their hormones, and they have a lot of people helping them. And if they've been healthy and running for the last 15 years of their life and they've gotten to this point in their career, they probably are pretty healthy, because it's almost impossible to do that if not feeling themselves well and doing all the right things. So I think just a reminder to that too, that in every way, shape, or form in life, focus on your own mat and what's in front of you, and not try to be what everybody else is, but also for young runners to know that there is no good reason for a 16-year-old body and a 26-year-old body to look the same. And if it does, there's probably something not right going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it exactly how I've said it to so many of my clients currently and in the past. So you were literally reading my mind, to the extent of even giving the examples of Shalane Flanagan and Kara Goucher, because I say this with caution. It's not my intent to have people like go look at a ton of pictures and compare bodies, but I have used them as examples that, hey, when you look at their pictures of their collegiate career, they looked different than how they look, 10 years later as a pro runner. You're right. They are more lean or were more lean during their like pro years and career, but it's a different life stage, and it's after another decade of training, and it's different age and hormone levels, exactly what you just said, Sarah. And so although I'm saying this with caution, not to like go down a rabbit hole of comparing bodies, but to recognize that what a college athlete's body looks like is different than a pro athlete. And when we bring it down to the research as well, again, I'm just going to, for the sake of it, avoid saying specific numbers, but body fat percentages in collegiate athletes, female collegiate athletes, is higher than in pro athletes. It just is. It doesn't mean collegiate athletes are doing anything wrong. That's your life stage, and it's a very important life stage. And it's very crucial. And to be honest too, that's the playing field. That's where you should be. So allow yourself to stay there. That's what you're supposed to be like, And
I think too, I always tell my student athletes, like, you look up and down starting lines, and it's very easy to see someone winning a race that maybe looks a certain way. And then you see the next year a person looking the race or winning a race that looks the same way. And in your brain, you're just going, okay, well, this is what I should look like. But then when you take a step back and look at it, you realize that that person is a different person every year. And that person, if you follow them through their career, it's not this, they're winning everything. And so that idea too, that you see and you hear it, which drives me bananas on broadcasts and with male commentators, especially, who talk about physique endlessly, which just drives me bananas. But the idea that, like, one, it's tied to performance, because there's a small tie to performance, but no more than your training and your mileage and your nutrition. I mean, there's so many things that get tied to performance outside of your body image and your physique and your body fat and all that kind of stuff. But to know that some of those people it's a different face every year. You might see the same physique, but it's not the same person, because it is almost impossible to cheat the system. And so you're not going to be able to do this at a consistent level the way you want to. And really in any sport, but especially in distance running, consistency wins in the long haul. And if you're going to be hurt every 6 months because your bones aren't strong enough and because you're not fueling yourself well enough, because my college age athletes in general too, that bone development starts ending in our careers here. And like the ability to build new bone and all that stuff really starts to end at 23, 24, 25. And so if we're cheating that system all the way through when we should actually be building it up, but we're declining it, there's no fix to that. There's no fix after college. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to cheat the system so I can win a bunch of college races, but then once I'm done, I'll fix it. Because at that point, there unfortunately isn't really a fix. And so again, I think that's the thing, is if you really, like you said, if you really draw this line through and see who has been able to do it consistently over time, not just the one-offs here and there that might support this idea that really lean is better because you're seeing it, but are you following that person through a career to see what the long-term effects of that are and how consistent that career really is? And most people aren't doing that. They're just kind of seeing it and then pulling these ideas and pulling these kind of quips that, like, oh, leaner is better and these small people are always the ones that win. And they kind of that idea and that storyline just perpetuates itself, but it's not, at least in my opinion, it's certainly not the long-term view and not the view that's going to make you most consistent in your career.
Hey fans, I hope you are enjoying this conversation so far, and we'll be back to it in just a moment. But first, I want to pause and let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Female Athlete System of Transformation, aka the fast track to overcome disordered eating and use food as fuel to perform at your highest level. The Female Athlete System of Transformation is my unique program and proven systems to guide female athletes to understanding and implementing the proper nutrition for their sport, life, and health. Myself and my team of registered sports dietitians work one-on-one with clients to address their unique needs and counsel them through the nutritional and behavioral changes needed. Many female athletes who resonate with disordered eating, mental guilt around food and body, relative energy deficiency in sport or female athlete triad, amenorrhea, repeat injuries due to negligent nutrition, or frankly, just a lack of knowledge and understanding on their fueling needs, have seen incredible success in the fast track. After years of working as a sports RD, I've compiled the most effective ways for female athletes to learn nutrition, be supported, be challenged, and ultimately find their success with fueling as fast as possible. So don't wait another day. Get to your goals faster by joining the Female Athlete System of Transformation. Look in the show notes or head to the website to book a free call and learn more. Okay, now let's get you back to the conversation. Enjoy. Yeah, it won't make you the most consistent in your career. It won't lead to the better performances over time. And also, although we might be tempted to win that race, and have our, what do you call it? Our 5 minutes in the sun or something like that. 5 minutes of fame.
Exactly.
That might be nice and might be tempting, but it's also quite sad. And for somebody to go through themselves, and it's sad for the people like the coaches and the family. And, when I hear those stories, I'm sad for those girls, and it's hard on them. And I think too, when you're that invested in being the best, it's not something you're ready to give up on. So it's like, do you really just want to win this one race or this 1 year and then not have a lifetime of running? Because for most runners, they appreciate so much more about the sport than just the winning. That's a huge part of it for sure. But it's like getting out for a run is good mental relief. It's, it's how they manage anxiety. It's good outdoor time. It's just like where we process our thoughts. And that's something so valuable to so many runners. I'm speaking for myself personally, just as like a lifelong runner. Like it's just something that you want to keep doing for the rest of your life, whether competitively or not. So think about that long term.
Right. And I think the long term too of just life happiness and life fulfillment in other ways, and there's a lot of damage that can be done physically, emotionally, all of the above, but especially physically with, whether it's bone density and early onset osteoporosis, and whether it's, inability to have kids because of, hormonal things that you've kind of screwed up. And so it isn't just about that one moment, and it isn't just about athletics. And, I'm sure you're preaching to the choir here too, but really, if you start to get down the path of really destructive behavior, there's so many layers to that of emotional and psychological damage and harm that takes a lifetime to try to, I hate to say fix, but to try to kind of work your way through. And I tell my athletes here, like, this is a time when you have all these resources to help you. When you leave here and you go into the real world, if you're still pulling through a lot of these really harmful behaviors or harmful activities, or you're psychologically still in a really bad place, there's not as much help out there. So once you go, it's up to you, and no one's kind of looking over your shoulder as a coach or a trainer or anybody else saying, hey, we really don't think you're in a great place right now, and we think you should see some help. When you go out in the real world, it's you deciding you need the help. And a lot of times people don't, because it's scary and it's hard and it's not pleasant, and it takes you way far out of your comfort zone, and it's easier to just stay in your comfort zone. And when you don't have sort of an authority figure, if you will, or just somebody who really is looking at that piece of it, telling you that kind of this is something you have to do to work on and get better at, it's very easy for it to be this long-term, just negative cycle with food and nutrition and body image. And that's a really hard thing to see as a coach when you see women that you've worked with when they're in their 30s and 40s and seeing that they're just still not in a good place, and that they didn't take advantage of the time when they were here to really work through some of that stuff. And it's still kind of plaguing everything,
Yeah. Yeah. I think the earlier intervention, the better, not only because our minds, I think, are just maybe more ready for change and more easily influenced by positive mentors and coaches and things like that, but also like you said, it opens up the opportunities for you for years to come. So the earlier intervention, the better. And so what are some ways, Sarah, that you foster, a healthy environment on your team with their relationship with fueling and food and nourishing their bodies? And kind of as a secondary question to that, is it different? Is your approach with fueling different with your men's team and your women's team?
Yeah, I think we're really, really lucky in Minnesota that we have nutritionists on staff. And that's been huge, because I think as a coach, I certainly have some knowledge by just living the experience, but I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I have not gone to school for it. And so I don't feel super confident disseminating advice outside of kind of the typical eat the rainbow and have good variety and fostering just positives of like, it's okay to have ice cream. It's okay to eat cookies. It's okay to, there's no bad foods out there. Those types of things I feel very confident in sort of putting out in the universe. But when it comes to the really nitpicky stuff, that's not my area of expertise. And I don't I don't want to cross into that lane because I don't think that's a good thing for me to do either. But so we are very lucky that we have people on staff that can counsel. And so oftentimes as a coach, if we see someone either struggling or just kind of feeling like, oh, there's some behavioral changes, there's some eating changes. I mean, we travel all the time with our teams. And so we see them on the road. I would encourage coaches or parents, like, you guys eat with your athletes a lot, and to just like watch for changes, even if their bodies haven't changed, but are all of a sudden they only ordering, lean proteins, and they're getting salad dressing on the side all the time. And they're, being very cautious of what they're consuming. And that was never something before. Like, those changes are stuff that we look for. And then we are able to kind of at that point say, hey, you know what, why don't you go sit down with our nutritionist and just kind of look at what you're eating and make sure you're fueling enough. And we just don't want it to go to a place that, maybe it's in a good place right now, but we just don't want it to maybe trickle into that bad zone. And so that's something we talk about and we're trying to be pretty open about. It's also a topic that I feel is hard to address as a big group because nutrition lands on people so differently, not only with athletics, but just society. I mean, women, I think, have this double-edged sword, female athletes, because not only is sort of the sport aesthetic a certain way, but then the Cosmo aesthetic is the same. Where I think for male distance runners, the aesthetic, the social aesthetic is the big, brawny, muscular guy. And the sport aesthetic for male distance runners is sort of this very lean, smaller person. And so they're seeing these two almost dichotomous images where women are seeing this leaner is better in every aspect. And everyone's marketing to you to lose weight and no carbs and there's just, it's just crazy. And so when you're in a sport that also sort of has this aesthetic to it as well, they're just getting hit at it from all elements. If you're in a sport where like being like on the women's side, like I would say maybe like softball or women's basketball, where like you need to be this strong, powerful, woman who has big muscle and is a big mass, or throwers, that's almost for them, that's hard because that's kind of the antithesis of what society wants. And so there's all these challenges on the women's side that definitely play in a little bit differently. But I think so it's just hard because from the very, very beginning, everyone comes into the program with a very different mindset about nutrition, with a very different history. And when you start talking to a big group in general terms, it lands on everybody so differently that I really don't do that very often. I mean, I try to just kind of throw in the quips, make sure everybody's getting a post-workout snack, like make sure we're, fueling well. I'll send out some messages, during stressful times, or like, especially as the season gets rocking, like, hey, you're busy, make sure you're planning your fueling, packing snacks, just those kind of general things. But when it comes to the really specific, like body image and like gaining weight, losing weight, those types of things, to try to have those conversations on a big scale, I think is kind of counterproductive and can be a negative, where those kind of, I think, have to be those more one-on-one in the office. We have one-on-one meetings with our athletes all the time. And those are the times to say like, hey, you know what, I'm kind of noticing these things, because it's sort of a joke, but it's true. Like when I was on the team, I was a captain and I had some younger girls on the team that you could kind of tell were maybe a little overly, retentive about their nutrition and their calories. And I was the captain that was like, oh, I want to help. So I'm going to order my, blue cheese dressing on top of the salad and just try to like show that. But in reality, those kids didn't care. They weren't like, they were going to do their thing regardless. And so I think if we try to just put these blanket statements out there, the kids that don't really need to hear it are the ones that are like, oh, yep, cool, check on that. And the kids that do need to hear it are like, oh, she's not talking to me. And so, I think doing the one-on-one is a little bit more effective. But the big message we try to give in every element of life is to focus on your own mat, and that everyone has a very different route. And that's training, it's sleep, it's academics, it's running. And so everyone's roadmap is going to be different. And I think if we stress that helps just the idea that I'm not emulating someone. I'm not trying to be Bethany Haas. I'm following my roadmap to get me to where I need to be. And I might get to the same place as Bethany Haas, who's our number one athlete, but my road's going to be different. And I think the more we stress that, it trickles into every element, because there's this idea that I want to be that. And so I'm just going to follow that same map. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work in nutrition. It doesn't work in training. It doesn't work in life. I mean, I'm somebody that still to this day with small children needs 9 or 10 hours of sleep to function in life, which for 6 years of my life was near impossible and almost killed me. But there's people out there that are like jumping up and down after 6 hours. And like, baffles the heck out of me because I can't do it. But so I just think all those areas we all have to figure out and look inside and figure out what do I need and what's right for me. And that's what we really try to preach in every element of our program is there is no cookie cutter in anything. And don't try to make a cookie cutter in nutrition, in sleep, in academics, in training. Everyone on our team runs different mileage every week. So there isn't this like direct comparison of I'm running this much, she's running this much. And we don't, heaven forbid, we do not do any weighing. I mean, they get weighed at doctor's appointments for just because it's a doctor's appointment, but like, we don't keep track of any of that stuff on our end. And so like, there is no, like, this is the standard, or this is the image. And I think we have enough women, and we recruit enough women too, that come in with all different builds and all different heights and all this different stuff that when you look around our team room, I remember when I was being recruited out of high school, my mom is not a runner. She's not, I mean, she runs, but my parents weren't athletes. And we went to a Big Ten championship and watched an indoor meet at Minnesota when I was being recruited. And after we were leaving the meet, she's like, well, you can go wherever, obviously, but I just don't know if it'd be the right fit at this place and this place and this place. And I was like, that's weird. My mom just doesn't know much about track. Like, why would you say that? And she was like, well, I just kind of watched, and like every single runner on those teams was built exactly the same way. And that just doesn't seem right to me.
Wow.
And my mom's a pretty savvy lady.
Yeah.
But I think that's something too, that like if you walk into a team meeting and you see that 15, 20, 30 women all look like they have the same build or similar builds, something's not normal. Where you're going to have these pretty lean little things that are just, you look at their moms and they're little too, and you look at their aunts and they're little too, and genetically that's just who they are. And then you look at women that are like strong and powerful and a little bit, thicker, if you will, and they're running just the same. And so like, I think when you recruit a team that recruits to that, and then that kind of starts to like fuel itself, that people walk in when they're freshmen and they look around and go, oh, I want to be like her, and I want to be like her, and I want to be like her. But none of the three of those people really have a whole lot in common physically. And so like, I don't have this thought that even if no one's actively saying it out loud, but I can just observe with my own two eyes, because we all know that you can talk till you're blue in the face, but really they're going to make some of these decisions just based on what they observe and what they think and what they feel like is best. And if at least they're surrounded by a lot of variety where they can see that there's a lot of different ways to get to that same endpoint, I think that goes the furthest versus us, talk until we're blue in the face about fueling more and doing all those things. Because really at the end of the day, when people are in a really bad place nutritionally, it's usually not about the food. It's about a lot of other stuff. And so like fixing the food problem doesn't fix much. And so I think there's a big piece of that. But I do think that, again, from a team culture perspective, we really just try to like, and every road trip, we go out for ice cream after the meet's over, and we go, several years ago at the national banquet for cross country, they had platters in the middle of each table with, scotcheroos and brownies and cookies and whatever. And it's 2 days before the national championship in cross country. And my teams are like eating their plate, they're having their food and then they're eating their plate with their cookies and their brownies. And then they're realizing after a year or two that like, man, a lot of teams don't do that at the banquet. So there's a lot of extra cookies and brownies laying on everybody else's table. And so my group's the one that like 2 years down the road, like brought a little Tupperware, and they're like, oh, I'm going to take some of these brownies for down the road. And as a coach, like, that's fine with me. Like, I think it's funny, and I fully encourage it. And I think like there's so many, I think we also have this, and this is a big tangent, but we also have this idea that being committed has something to do with like nutrition. So like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
You're not a really committed runner if you eat sweets. Like, or I remember when I was in high school, it was like, you needed to give up soda for the season. Now we can all agree that soda is bad for you, but I drink a soda every day. Like it's just how I am.
Yeah. I love hearing that.
But like, there was this committed thing of like, well, to commit to it, you need to give something up. Like you need to, and I think that
idea and message of like sacrificing or suffering through the pain to get what you want. Yeah. Yeah.
And we had a nutritionist, Rasa Troop, who is phenomenal. If you've ever come across Rasa's work.
I have. Yes.
Yeah. Rasa is the best. And she was our nutritionist for a long time. And I just miss being a teammate with her. So we're pretty close friends. And when she would stress to the team and to me and to everybody else, it was, there is no such thing as a bad food. And if that's true, then there should be no food that you can't eat during a season or the night before a race or whatever it is. Now, we all know that like if you eat a pint of ice cream, your stomach might not be super happy with all that lactose and you might feel like crap, but there's nothing performance wise that's going to suffer. And we would always say, like, if you love Snicker bars, like buy a bag of, fun size Snicker bars and eat one every day. Now, if you only eat 5 Snicker bars a day and that's your sole nutrition, you're not going to
be good.
Yeah. But like if you're running 60, 70, 80 miles a week, even if you're running 20 miles a week and you love Snicker bars and you're not replacing other better nutrition with a Snicker bar, but you're eating it as not even a reward, but just as something you like and enjoy, just having that, I think that overarching mindset that there isn't this tie-in with like a food sacrifice and that's what's going to make you good. And I just think that messaging is very problematic. And we try, I go buy donuts for team meals. I'm fully supportive of like, and I think the women on the team then, they're not at all bashful about, like, we were pulling up to a hotel and one of my top kids was like, hey, Hop, like up the block there's a Culver's. Could we just like swing by that drive-thru real quick and grab some ice cream? And I was like, sure, go for it. And instead of it being like, oh, we can't ask Hop for ice cream because she's going to think we're not committed because we want to eat ice cream 2 days before a race. Like, no, there's no correlation there. And so I think that from a cultural perspective, that's something that we really try to, again, just kind of just always have present, that there isn't this like negative connotation with anything with fueling, that nothing that you put in your body is inherently bad. It's just, how are you doing it the right way to get the most out of yourself? And obviously, like, eating majority fruits and vegetables and healthy things and lean proteins and all that stuff is going to help make you feel the best when you're training and racing, because those all have key ingredients and nutrients that are going to help you feel good and your body recover. But that, 200 calorie, bowl of ice cream after dinner every night, if you've had a great nutritious dinner that gives you all the nutrients and the micronutrients that you need, is fine. Nothing's wrong. And so I think that hopefully is something that trickles down and that is subtle in some ways, but then not subtle in other ways.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like, like my question to you of like, how do you foster that environment? And it was funny because your first response was like, well, I refer out, we have dietitians who will have those conversations. And though that's true for the problem scenarios and those unique health needs and things like that, it sounds like you're doing a fabulous job of when you're just you and you have a good relationship with food and you're supportive of stopping at a variety of different restaurants when you're traveling with a team. You're supportive of them eating a brownie 2 days before a race and bringing Tupperware to bring some home with them as well. That it absolutely trickles down. And I think if you are currently in high school, looking into colleges, looking to run at colleges, when you go on your visits and tours and stuff, these are things to look out for. Typically, when people go on a recruiting visit, like, you'll go out to eat with the team. Take note of that. And take note, I think another golden nugget that you said, Sarah, was like the diversity of what's on a team as well. Take a look at the diversity of athletes, of people, of body sizes, maybe even diversity of ethnicities and races, maybe even diversity of what people are studying, their majors, because not only does that make a team way more fun to be more diverse, but it's also kind of a foreshadowing of what you can expect when you join the team. Are you going to be valued and looked at as an individual, or are you going to be feeling pressure to fit a certain mold that may or may not be right for you, So it's great to hear, as a coach, you're giving those generic messages of like, hey, pre-workout fuel, post-workout fuel, make sure you're hydrating, things like that. You're referring out, you have those resources. And I would say to anybody listening to who is in a university that doesn't have those resources, like, go to your coach then, because it's one of those things where it's like, just talk to somebody. Kind of what you were saying earlier of not talking about it is the worst case scenario.
Yeah. And even as a coach too, like, do your own education. Like, there are a lot of great resources. Nancy Clark is amazing. Obviously, this podcast has, I'm sure, some great nuggets in it.
And we've even had Nancy Clark on this podcast.
Wonderful. And Ross, there's just so much out there that you can, even if you don't feel like you're equipped, like, there's really no reason not to be equipped. And obviously there's a lot of kind of garbage science out there, but if you can get through some of that stuff and get to the stuff that really is pretty practical and just like the typical stuff. Because I do see that a lot in high school work. High school coaches just come to me and they say, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm struggling to help this kid. And hopefully a lot of that is able to refer to doctors and other people, but just having your own knowledge base that you feel comfortable in and that doesn't overstep your boundaries, but also that you have enough knowledge to know like what questions to ask and not feel uncomfortable. Like as a male coach, not feeling comfortable asking a female athlete if they're getting their period. Like it's an okay question. It's not that weird. Like, and to just get comfortable with that. I know my college coach was a male and almost every meeting was asked about my period. And it's like, okay, well, yep, you get real comfortable real quick, not being bashful as an 18-year-old, like, I don't want to talk about this with this 60-year-old guy. But it's not that, it's just like anything else. Like, how's your training this week? Are you, and I have colleagues that track that to make sure that they are, fueling enough and things like that. So I think just if you are somebody who doesn't have the blessing, or if you're a parent who's not quite knowing how to approach things, there are a lot of great resources in the community too, not just at schools, but in the community. But if you're struggling, there's a lot of great stuff out there from some great nutritionists, dietitians, psychologists that can kind of help. And a lot of the professional runners. I mean, there's a lot of women that are really outspoken, whether it is Kara or Lauren Fleshman or Emma Coburn, or people that are very open about, or, Molly Seidel's a great example. She had a really rough patch in there and she's very open about it. And I think just kind of doing a little bit of research on those things and seeing what potholes other people have gone through and trying to do your best to help the people you love and care about avoid those potholes, or at least know that those potholes might exist if you are in the realm of an elite athlete in any realm, that there are some potholes like that. And if you kind of know that those potholes are out there, at least you might be more prepared when they may or may not affect your family, your kid, your athlete you coach, things like that it doesn't kind of catch you off guard.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, you mentioned something else as we were talking about how when you were in college, you had a male coach. And so I just kind of want to pause for a moment and just, because you are a head coach as a woman, head coach of both a women's and a men's team, which is a really big deal. And actually, before I dive into this, I have a question for you. Are you familiar with the Tucker Center for Research?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's at your university, at the University of Minnesota. So yeah. I was just Googling in preparation for this podcast on how many female head coaches are there, because I know it's under 50%. So I was Googling. And so I learned that back in 1972, which by the way, was women's sports were really just starting back in 1972. So these numbers might be skewed because there were even less teams. But in 1972, females or women coached about 90% of the women's collegiate teams versus today it's less than half. And so I got this information from the Tucker Center for Research, which is at the University of Minnesota, which then I was like, well, that's funny because I'm talking to you and you're from there. But as of, 2019 to 2020, out of 970 NCAA head coaches of women's teams from 86 different institutions, only 42% are female. So it's under 50% to even coach the women's sports. And I'm sure it's even less coaching the men's sports. Yeah. So that's a really big deal, I think, for you being a head coach and again, of both a women's and a men's team. I'd just love to hear from you, Sarah, and your opinion and your experiences. How can we improve opportunities for more female coaches? And this is not to speak negatively of men's coaches. They can be wonderful at their job, but we know that women can be wonderful at our jobs too. And also as we talk about some of these delicate conversations, like you got comfortable talking about your period with your coach, but maybe for an athlete that's feeling uncomfortable with this, maybe that is easier to have with a female coach. How do you think we can improve some of these opportunities for more female coaches?
Yeah, it's tricky. I actually just got off of a panel because this is the 50th anniversary of Title IX, which is why 1972 is a big deal. And so I was just on a panel with that before I came on this podcast. But I think one of the things you see prior to 1972 was there was a lot of, not a lot, but there was a good amount of women's sports teams, but there wasn't money in it. A lot of those women were teaching at the university and they were coaching on the side because there wasn't big salaries. And once money came into women's sports, men said, oh, that sounds fun. I'll do that. And so I think the money piece of it really is what fluctuated more than anything else. Was money flooded in, which was great for female athletes, but also a lot of men who never would have dreamed of coaching women in 1972, because why would you? All of a sudden said, well, I can't get a men's coaching job, but I want to be a coach. So now I'll coach women because I can get paid the same or close. and I'll start coaching women.
It's really interesting to hear that, perspective. That makes sense.
There's a wrinkle to that that's interesting. And again, that double-edged sword of the increase of women's sports popularity, which again, for female athletes has been amazing, but for female coaches has actually kind of gone the opposite direction. So, and we're actually on the upswing right now, which tells you a lot about even 20 years ago that it was way worse.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I read that in the article I was reading. We are on the upswing. That 42% is pretty darn good right now.
The highest it's been in a while since those levels. And so I think that's a big deal. But I think a lot of it, so much of it is having the role models and being coached by women and knowing that, hey, if I want to coach, I can, and I can see women doing it. There's those, I think one of the Tucker Center kind of mottos is like, if you can see her, you can be her, one of the women's kind of coaching mottos. And so I think just having women that have run for me that now want to coach or that feel like, well, it's at least I know it's an opportunity and an option, and maybe I wouldn't have seen that before. But I think a lot of it is societal too. And we were just talking about this in the other panel I was on, was people always ask me, well, like, how do you balance this? How do you balance having two small children and being a coach? But I have several male colleagues who have kids the same age as I do, and never do they get asked, how do you balance having kids and being a coach? And I think that's such a societal thing that somehow women are doing something wrong, or it's harder for women because how can you be fair to your kids and your family when you're gone so much or when you're doing these things? But male coaches have the same schedule. They're gone all the time. And no one's asking that same question when dads, my husband would be very sad and hard for him to leave his kids every other weekend, but it's more socially acceptable for that. And so I think it doesn't really come from sports per se. It just comes from that societal expectation that somehow moms are the cornerstone of the parenting and dads are sort of the tag-alongs. And you hear that all the time, like, oh, it was so nice of dad to take the kids for a Saturday. Like, what? No.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's his job.
Taking the kids.
Yeah, it's dad.
It's 50-50 here. And so I think that's part of it is just that understanding. And it's not just in coaching. It's CEOs, it's women who have high-powered jobs. It's just like, and they sit around talking about how you deal with their kids in sport, but there is never a men's conference for how do you be a dad in athletics. But there's conferences all the time for how can you like balance being a mom and being a coach. And so I just think we have to ask that question is why. It's great that we're trying to ask that question about women and try to support women and try to find some fixes, if you will, to help women be moms and be coaches. But those same fixes need to be there for dads, because it's not great for dads to be gone from their kids for that long or for not to have a great relationship with their children. Like, that's not good either. And so how can we look at coaching and say, how can coaching be more conducive to parenting?
How can coaching be conducive to family life and parenting? Yeah.
Because it's hard. Or how can any high profile profession have a better family at the core and say, if you're a male CEO for whoever who's working 90 hours a week and, at the office till 10 o'clock at night and you didn't see your kids today, that's not good balance either. And so I think you see that all over now is just like this whole race to just do more and better, it costs everybody at every level. And so I think that there's a big piece of that we need to keep exploring and keep understanding, but also looking at the coaching profession holistically and say, how do we just make this a more balanced lifestyle for every coach? Because honestly, I'm pretty selfish. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm very selfish when it comes to my family. And there's nights that I just don't call recruits because I say, like, I've been working all day and I haven't seen my kids and I was gone all weekend and I'm going to hang out and play with my kids. And I'm sorry, but if you don't come to Minnesota because I didn't call you this one time, that's probably not the right fit anyway. And I think it's just the way I've always gone about the job, is to say that, like, my kids will always come first. And I have no problem missing practice. I love the women. I have a love-hate relationship with, social media, where you see these coaches who, and I did the same thing myself, I'm not going to lie, who, and you're in the same boat right now, who, a week later, it's like, oh, she was on the court coaching a game the week after she gave birth. And we celebrate this. And it's cool and it's a good thing to celebrate, but also it's this double-edged sword, because then ADs and bosses and everybody else look and go, well, then what's wrong with you for asking for, how dare you ask for 6 weeks of maternity leave? Right. If this other woman is back on the court 4 days later, or you hear the Pat Summitt story of her, like, basically like her water breaking on an official visit.
God,
and,
yeah.
it's kind of this empowering thing, but it's also this like judgmental, like you feel guilty if you're the mom who says like,
I
I'm going
can't
to take
or
my
I
maternity
won't.
leave. And
Yeah.
like, I'm owed that. And like, I don't know. I mean, I could have had the easiest birth in America and feel great 2 days later and be able to come back in the office or feel awesome and could have an easy baby that sleeps. Mine did not sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know. And so how you can plan for those things. But like I said, I think I've done this because I've been pretty selfish with that. And I've kind of expected that my career is going to be what it is. And I think I'm a really good coach. And I think I'm going to coach the kids that want to be at Minnesota, but I'm not going to sacrifice the time that I do have with my family to do something because everyone else is on the phones every night or everyone else is staying late for practice or whatever else. And I think that's what my women on the team and my men on the team need to see, because whatever role they go into, I think it's okay for them to see that, hey, you know what, guys, I love you all dearly, but I can't come in today because Jack's sick and you guys are going to have to deal with that and, or whatever, and I think for them to see that is another good education, to see that, they learn a lot. And I don't know if they're learning it right now, but I think when they're 35 or 40 and they start having kids and they're, in the back room pumping or doing whatever, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember when Hop was in this phase. Like, no wonder she was crabby sometimes. Like, she's not sleeping. Like, yeah, yep. And so I think it's just, I do think that that's important for men and women to see, but it's important for us to be vulnerable in that and to show that. And because I think a lot of times, especially as women, we want everyone to look at it and think that it's so easy and that it's perfect. And like, oh, you make it look so easy. But that's not a good thing, because then when someone else is going through it and they're struggling, they're going to think they're doing something wrong. And I think that to show that, hey, you know what? I got bags under my eyes. I'm exhausted. Like, I'm going to send this text and say, I just can't do it today. Like, we need to do that more to show the people that we're coaching that that's okay to do that for themselves down the road, or our kids or whoever else, that like, it's okay for me to take some time or to advocate for what I need. And I'm showing you might in the moment think that I'm shortchanging you, but I'm showing you that when you're in this boat down the road, it's okay for you to make the same decision. Cause I listen, I don't know if you listen to We Can Do Hard Things podcast with Glennon Doyle, but it's an awesome podcast. And they just talk a lot about like being a parent and saying like, it's okay to model that behavior, that like, yeah, this is hard. And I'm going to show you that it's hard. I'm not going to try to cover up that it's hard. And I think sometimes when we see all this stuff on social media, it kind of covers up that like, this is hard, and it's okay. It's supposed to be.
I absolutely love everything you just said, both, starting with the balance of, it's for moms and dads. It's how can we make coaching more conducive to parent life, but then also just the realities of being a mom. And you and I kind of chatted about this a little bit before we hit record, just because I am doing this podcast like just 3 weeks after giving birth. And you were like, are you okay to do this? And I was like, well, actually, this is like one of the very first things I've done. I've taken that time, and I kind of needed like to do a little bit of work to feel like myself. Well, at the same time, I'm going to take your advice and just show people that it is hard. Gabe just started crying. Yep. And Rob is dealing with him, but my heart's kind of like aching, and the inside. And I'm like, oh, darn it. Like I should be there now or go help out, so it is hard, but there's no right way. Everybody has, and you know what, Sarah, this is awesome, because what you were just saying about everybody's journey and motherhood or being somebody who's juggling home life and work life was very much everybody's story is different. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know if this is what they want, what's easy for them, or if they're pushing. So there's no reason to like glorify it. And that kind of matches up with what you were saying about your athletes earlier too, of like, you have your own map, stay on your own map, focus on your own journey. And there's no one right way. It's just, staying on your path and doing what's best for you. So that kind of ties that up nicely. And I think with that being said, baby's crying. I don't know if you can hear him.
He was saying we are done. The podcast is over. Yes. Mom, you are needed. I had this happen when I was doing an unofficial visit to campus that I tried to do like 4 days after Jack was born, because I thought I would be Superwoman and I could do it. And my husband and Jack were in my office. I was in a conference room, and halfway through where I'm trying to like form coherent sentences and talk to this recruit, and Jack starts screaming. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like starting my like lactating, and I'm like all these things, and I'm like, and Jack is screaming, and I'm like, I can't focus on anything right now because my baby's crying, and I'm 4 days in, so of course I'm like, almost crying myself. So it's and I like I said, I just think it's important for people to see that hard and not just to try to make it look social media worthy, because that's not normal and real, and it's really hard. And where you are right now is really hard. Like this phase is really hard. I hated the newborn phase because it's really hard. And I will say it gets so much, it gets better, but also like this like first 3 months, they're just like a bag of flour. Once they start like having a personality and like giving you stuff back, you're like, oh, this is fun now. But like now I'm just taking care of a bag of flour that needs me every 30 seconds, which is hard.
Yep. So. Every 30 seconds. Cradle, a soothing or feeding. It's something all the time. So Sarah, thank you so much. This was just amazing to talk to you. Congratulations again on kind of where you're at with your career and your team. Super excited to keep following your team and spreading kind of the good message of how to fuel your body, have that healthy relationship with food as a collegiate athlete. I think you said so many golden nuggets, ride the wave, stay on your map. And those are two that I wrote down. Oh, something else you said, if you can see her, you can be her, which I think was from the Tucker Center, but I love that one too. So we appreciate you so much, and good luck to your team this year with the upcoming track season, and next year for cross country.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the time.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode, and thanks for listening. But before I let you go, I have free resources that you can have access to right away, right now, so that you can start fueling your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. First, I have your Red S recovery race. If you've ever wondered if you might be struggling with Red S, curious to learn more, or know you have Red S and are looking to recover fast, then you can head to www.riseupnutritionrun.com/RedS and download the Red S Recovery Race. See how you place and figure out the next steps to recovery. Plus, while there, I have a few other great resources for you, including 3 nutrition secrets that every elite athlete swears by, and access to our private Facebook community, Female Athlete Nutrition. So again, to gain access to all of this, head to riseupnutritionrun.com/RedS. That's /REDS. And you can gain access and get the help you need fast. Too many girls and women and female athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. Become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and I'll see you next time.